Thank you. Welcome to the Wareham Conservation Commission meeting of Wednesday, May 18th, 2022. We have Kwame, Carol, Michael, Denise, Sandy. Am I missing anybody?
Elisa.
Elisa.
Hi, she's muted. But welcome. Is that it?
Oh, yeah, no.
No,
Yeah.
we missed.
No, you got everybody.
That's it.
I was hoping Jessica would join us, but we'll start the meeting. I had asked Denise to review a set of minutes, and I think there were some problems with them, so will they wait until next meeting? Denise?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. I know there was, yes, there were problems with it, and Nicole was just supposed to fix the votes. She had them as 600. They should have all been 500.
Okay. So they've not been sent out, they've not been corrected and sent out to the committee?
No,
Commission.
she did not.
Okay,
send them
so
to
we
the
will
committee.
hold those minutes until the next meeting. Shall we start with the first hearing, please, Elisa?
We can certainly do that.
Thank you.
This
Cindy,
is
Nicole's
notice.
here now.
All right, did you want to ask if there's anybody there for the meeting, for the first reading?
Well, no, we do the reading, then I ask. Don't I normally, don't
Okay,
we
all right,
just
yep, you're right.
hearing?
Yep.
Yeah.
Notice of public hearing. Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held on Wednesday, May 18th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. on the request for determination of applicability for the Wareham Land Trust and Wildlands Trust, care of Elise Leduc Fleming, P.O. Box 718, Wareham, Mass. To install bog boards on existing trails located on Assessor's Map 54, Lot 1002, Map 55, Lot 1009, 0 Cremisa Road and 49 Shady Lane, Wareham, Mass.
Thank you. Is there anybody here representing this project? Please identify yourself.
I'm here, Elisa Duke Fleming from the Wareham Land Trust.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Bichette.
Okay, I'm just gonna pull up this plan here real quick.
I just thought everybody liked to know it just reached 102 in the backyard and climbing.
Very nice.
Enjoy it.
We're supposed to get 90, I think, this weekend.
Yay. You heard my wonderful yay.
Okay, so this project is located at what's called 0 Cremisa Road and 49 Shady Lane, and these are pieces of conservation property owned by the Wareham Land Trust and the Wildlands Trust. The proposed project is to install bog board within some sections of existing trail that happen to be within wetland areas to allow for drier walking passage over these parts of the trails. There's approximately 100 feet of bog board to be installed. All the work is proposed to be done by hand. There's no clearing that would need to be done for this work to occur. So I would recommend the approval of this activity with a negative determination number 2.
Thank you. Elise, is anything like to, Elise, is there anything you'd like to add to that description?
Dave's description was really great. The one thing I would add is what's happening now is as the trail gets muddy and wet and ponds up, particularly in the late winter and early spring, folks try to walk around the wet spots. And what they're actually doing is trampling the wetland vegetation on either side of the existing trail. We're hoping that by putting the bog boards in, we'll corral traffic to the center of the trail that exists and actually allow some of that vegetation to regrow over time.
Thank you. Questions on the commission? I'll go start with Kwame.
Kwame's not here.
Is he muted?
I thought I saw him.
He was there.
Okay, well, Carol,
No questions.
Denise,
No questions.
Mike,
Don, I've seen them on other trails in other towns. I think they're wonderful. So go ahead.
Elisa.
Like Michael, I'm really happy that Wareham Trust and the Wildlands Trust has this area and they're doing this to make it better for us. It's great.
Thank you. I have no additional questions. Is there anybody on the call online that would like to comment on this project?
I'd like to make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
I have a motion to close the hearing. I have a
Second.
second. All in favor, Elisa,
Yes.
Kwame, Carol,
Yes.
Denise,
Yes.
Mike,
Yep.
Sandy. Yes, the hearing is closed.
I move that we accept this project with a -2.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for a -2. All in favor, Lisa,
Yes.
Kwame, Carol,
Yes.
Denise,
Yes.
Mike,
Yep.
Sandy. You have it. Please see Mr. Bichette for your paperwork before you start.
Great. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Good evening.
Okay, you ready again?
Next one, please.
Ma'am. Notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protective Law Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held on Wednesday, May 18th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. on the request for determination of applicability for Sarah John Realty LLC, care of JC Engineering, Inc., 2854 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham, Mass. 02538, to construct a single-family dwelling located on Assessor's Map 60, Lot 1008A, 150 Blackmore Pond, Wareham, Mass.
Thank you. Is there anybody here representing this project?
Yes, Sam Imelli with JC Engineering.
Thank you, Sam. Mr. Bichette, your turn.
Yes, this proposed project is at 150 Blackmore Pond Road, and the project involves site work in the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland associated with the construction of a single-family dwelling, driveway, and septic system on this lot. The proposed driveway to access the house and some clearing work would be the work that's within the buffer zone to wetlands that exists on the other side of the street, the other side of Blackmore Pond Road from the proposed lot. The proposed house and septic system are outside the buffer zone to the wetland. When I did initially review the site was not staked. I'm told that they have since done that. As far as the project goes, I didn't necessarily have a concern with the project, but I'll leave it up to the commission to describe or talk about any questions you have.
Thank you. Sam, comments, please?
Yeah, so just to kind of restate, the wetlands are across Blackmore Pond. The only portion of work within that 100-foot buffer zone is about a 60-foot stretch of paved driveway. We're also providing a stone trench along the side of the driveway to direct any runoff to discharge into that trench. As far as the stakeout, we had completed that by about noon today. So if you drove by after that, you would have seen that. I apologize it wasn't done sooner. We assume because of the nature of this project that it wouldn't really be required. But that's all at this time.
Okay.
Any questions? Lisa?
Basically, they didn't have it staked. We were there around 12:20. And they were beginning to stake it. I have no idea what's down there. As far as I'm concerned, it's woods. There we are.
Kwame. Maybe I didn't see him. Is he here?
No, he
And I
was
think-
there.
Yeah,
He's here.
He is or is not?
he is.
Okay,
But
Is
but
he
we
on
can't,
mute by chance or?
You may not be available at the moment to speak.
okay. Carol, questions?
No questions, no.
Denise?
I have an issue, as Elisa stated, that it wasn't staked when we got out there, did not get to go back. And I think if the project isn't staked, then it should be moved to the next meeting.
Mike?
Tried to get a chance to look at it this past Sunday, and again, it wasn't staked. Kind of have an idea. It's pretty much nothing but woods, just like Elise, but again, I was pretty much, to me, it was just, looked like it was just small woods and it was not staked at all.
Okay, thank you. I have a question. You talked about 60 feet of the paved driveway is within 100 foot of the wetlands. You said there were stormwater retention areas on both sides. I'm having a tough time reading the plan.
Yeah,
Sam?
so we're providing a 5-foot wide stone trench along the
I
edge
s-
of the driveway and super
see it now.
elevating the
Yep.
driveway to kind of direct runoff into that area.
Thank you. And like the rest of the board, we've asked continuously to have these items staked, so when we go out to review them, we can see where it is. Now, we get notices on Thursday of what the hearings are, so anytime after Thursday and before today, you're gonna have members out there looking. So
Okay.
is there anybody online that would like to comment on this project?
One more comment.
Yes,
Oh, I am online. And that is, is this an asphalt driveway that you're putting in?
Yes, that's what we're proposing.
Asphalt with big drainage tunnels?
With a stone trench along the side.
Okay.
anything else? I guess we are going to request a continuance so we can get out looking at it staked.
Move to continue the
Second.
project.
I have a motion and second to continue. All in favor?
The next
Um,
meeting is June 1st.
Thank you.
And the reason for the
Thank
continuance, Sandy,
So, I'm sorry, what?
the reason for the continuance was no
Project
was-
staking.
Project was not staked.
The location, the area of the project was not identified on the property, so
Thank
no
you.
stakes. So that's why we're continuing
Okay,
in June 1st. So was there a motion to continue until June 1st?
Yes, I made a motion to continue to June 1st.
Second,
And
We have a
second,
second. Yep.
all in favor, Elisa, Kwame, Carol,
yes.
Denise,
Yeah.
Mike,
Yep.
Sandy will continuing until June 1st.
Thank you.
Okay, next project, I assume, Sam, the same thing happened on the lot next to this?
Correct. Identical projects,
Okay.
lot next door.
Okay, so you
I
can read
move
the
to
next
continue.
project, please.
oh, you want me to read it? Anyway, okay. Notice of
Gotta be
public
ready. Yep.
pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. Public hearing will be held on Wednesday, May 18th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. on the request for determination of applicability for Sarah John Realty LLC, care of JC Engineering, Inc., 2854 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham, Mass. 02538, to construct a single-family dwelling located on Assessor's Map 69, Lot 1008B, 152 Blackmore Pond Road, Wareham, Mass.
Thank you. Anybody here representing this project?
Yes, Sam Imelli with JC Engineering.
Thank you, I had to ask. Okay, Mr. Bichette, your turn.
Yeah, so this is the next lot over from the one we just reviewed, 152 Blackmore Pond Road. And this project also involves site work in the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland associated with the construction of a single-family dwelling, driveway, and new septic system. So again, the driveway and some site work is proposed within the buffer zone to the wetland. And as we already discussed, the site was not staked out. So we're in the same circumstance, and I would recommend the continuance for that issue.
Sam, any comment?
I'll just make mention that this is a wooded lot. We had the house staked out and the center line of the driveway. So if you are just doing a drive-by, you may only see one or two
No,
stakes for each driveway.
Lisa, you had a comment?
Just that we drove by when they were taking out their equipment to put it in. It was not a question that we didn't go into the lot. We didn't because they said they were just starting to stake it. And we told them that they may have to have a continuance.
And that was Tuesday afternoon?
No, that was this
Okay.
afternoon at
Oh, this,
12:15.
Wednesday afternoon,
Yes.
okay. Is there anybody, questions? I'm gonna go through the commission. Elisa,
No,
Kwame, Carol,
No questions.
Denise,
I just need to know how to spell Sam's last name.
IAMELE.
Thank you.
Mike,
Same as the last one. I tried going back on there this past Sunday, and this is very difficult to find, so nothing new.
I have no other questions. Is there anybody online who would like to comment on this project? Hearing none?
Move to continue this project to June 1st, due to
Second.
the fact that there were no stakes involved.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, Lisa,
yes,
Kwame, Carol, Denise,
Yes.
Mike,
Yep.
Sandy. The hearing is continued until June 1st.
Thank you.
okay, notice of public hearing. You ready, Sandy?
Already?
Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protected Bylaw Division 6. A public hearing will be held on Wednesday, May 18th, 2022, 6:30 p.m. on the notice of intent for Angela DDA, care of JC Engineering, Inc., 2854 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham, Mass. 02538, to upgrade a septic system and place 3 decks located on Assessor's Map 20, Lot 1048, 8 Lydia Island Road, Wareham, Mass.
Thank you. Anybody here representing this project?
Yeah, good evening, Brian Wallace with JC Engineering.
Okay, Brian, Mr. Bichette?
Yes, this project site is at 8 Lydia's Island Road. And the project involves upgrading a septic system at this site, which is within a coastal flood zone and partially in the buffer zone to a coastal bank at the site. So the existing system is to be replaced with a new Title V nitrogen reducing septic system. The installation of the new tanks for the system would be just within the 100-foot to the coastal bank, and the leach field would be just outside of that. And the site also, as I said, is within a coastal flood zone as well. The septic system is being located as far from the wetland resource areas as possible, which is up close towards Lydia's Island Road. There are also several decks, as shown on the plan, that are existing, that are to be reconstructed in the same footprint. So that will require new footings for these decks. The other item that is going to be something that I would recommend be included is there are a number of trees that have been blown down from recent storm events and so forth, and they're uprooted, and the applicant would wish to be able to remove the remnants of those trees, which I have no problem with. If you've been by there, you could easily recognize the uprooted trees. At the time when I did the agenda. I did not have a DEP file number. I don't know, Brian, have you received that at this point?
Yeah, I actually got it on Monday, and I can give that to you.
Okay, that's fine. So if we have the DEP file number, then I would recommend the approval of this project with the standard conditions and the added conditions that for the tree removal, that those areas be encompassed by erosion control if they are actually going to excavate the stumps out of the ground, because a lot of this property is very near salt marsh.
What about the decks, David?
What? Are the
Um,
decks in the same place?
The decks are part of what was applied for in the application, and they are replacing just the existing footprint that's already there. So they're just going to be replaced in the same footprint.
Okay, Brian, anything to add?
No, I think that was a good summary. With regard to the trees and the stumps, yeah, most of them are significantly uprooted. If you went by, you might have seen. Underneath is just sand already. So I think a lot of them probably wouldn't require too much excavation, but we're happy to provide any erosion control measures that are deemed appropriate for that.
The one last comment, Madam Chair, that I forgot to mention is when I was at the site, there was definitely some of the salt marsh that was being mowed as though it was part of the lawn area. As part of the conditions, I am recommending that obviously a condition be put in that there be no further mowing of the salt marsh.
Is there a particular, I don't want any further, I don't want any mowing of salt marsh, so what they've mowed is no longer continued to be mowed. Is there any way of identifying that limit?
The edge of the marsh is identified on this edge over here. And so some of that area has been sort of mowed off. So it's a narrow strip, but nonetheless, it should not be mowed. And basically, we can just put the condition in that there be no mowing of salt marsh wherever it exists on the lot. And therefore, anywhere where they're doing it, they're going to have to stop. And I certainly can, I'm going to be meeting with the applicant and the contractor before the work starts, and we can go over these areas in the field to make sure that these people understand where that should not occur anymore.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask the board, Elisa.
I just didn't know, Cindy, I think I didn't get your answer to your question. Is there a way that they are demarcating the salt marsh, or is it just going to be that Dave will say where it is and then you just go ahead and whatever happens, happens?
David's going to say where it is, and if that salt marsh expands into their yard, they don't mow the material of salt marsh. Because you can put a border there now, and that those plants can creep across the border. So if you look at the vegetation, I'm sure Dave will tell them what makes up a salt marsh for vegetation and no mowing it. That
Yeah,
was
a
what
lot of the area was along this edge of the property over here.
So it's not even on their property?
Some may not be. If they don't own this particular lot, then it looks like they do, though. It looks like they own
Okay,
both.
yep. Okay.
So this is where the majority of it was occurring.
Anything else, Elisa?
Not for me.
Kwame?
He's on,
Carol?
but he's muted.
No questions.
Denise?
I was out to the site today. I did see 2 trees that were uprooted and had been cut. The stumps were left, but there were 2 trees closer to the water. Were they also uprooted, or were they just cut? Did you notice, Dave?
Brian or Dave?
Brian, somebody? There were.
Yeah, there was definitely several trees, not just two, that were either uprooted or significantly damaged,
Okay. Within the
leaning
things was-
over. So I would estimate there was as many as 6 to 8
Okay.
trees
I did
throughout the
get-
entire
Yeah,
site.
I didn't actually get onto the property. And also the deck work has already started. They were working on it today.
No, what they're doing right now is replacing the windows and sliders. That might have been what you had seen out there. I did speak to the owner. I had a conversation about that with Dave today as well, and confirmed afterwards that they were just working on the windows and sliders and pulling back some of the siding to check for rot. So
Okay.
to my knowledge, they were not working on the decks. It might have appeared that way, but that won't be done until after, permitting and all that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
That was all I had.
Mike,
No questions, thank you.
I noticed Nicole is on. Nicole, do you have any questions?
I do not, thank you.
You should have said I'm here, so I would have acknowledged you earlier.
If I had a question, I would have.
Okay, okay. So they can work on the deck, but they can't work on the footings until this is approved, correct?
Well, they really should just not do any of that work until such time that the order is issued.
For the footings.
I would say all of it, because the whole
Okay.
thing was part of what they requested as part of their order.
All right. Okay, because when I replaced the boards on my deck, okay, never mind, that's another thing. All right, is there anybody online that would like to comment on this project? I did have one question. When you're in there taking out all those trees and those stumps, can you ask that the machinery be as careful as they can be and not destroy smaller trees that are growing? I guess that's a good way to put it. It's not to be clear cut. They are to be specifically removing those trees that have been damaged in a storm. I
Yeah,
just ask that you're,
Thankfully, on this particular site, it's mostly lawn with a few trees that remained within the lawn area. So there's really nothing around these trees that uprooted except lawn.
okay, thank you. Is there, hearing nobody, in
Hello,
the audience?
are you there?
Yep.
Yeah, how you
Yes.
doing? I'm Dave Raleigh from 17, Salt Creek Road. I've been dealing with these people for quite some time. You're talking about these three porches in the back, and they're going to be rebuilding them. What about the front porch that they rebuilt 2 years ago?
I'm not really aware of what they may or may not have done. If you believe they've done some work without permits, then you really should speak to the building inspector so he can go out and determine whether that is the case or not.
Okay, that's fine. I will do that. Secondly, Miss Diddy has blocked the right-of-way for all these properties on the left-hand side of Lydia Road with 2 unregistered, uninsured vehicles.
I'm gonna, Dave, sorry, Dave, this has
Yeah.
to do with conservation in which way?
The conservation is, they created Salt Creek Road further down than what it actually is. They disrupted, James Antosker and her disrupted an area of wetlands and created a cut through further down from the front of their property. We were going to pursue this, but we were not able to do proper, what do you call it? Go around and check all the different measurements, surveys. Because James, at the time, from what I was told, had pulled all the permanent markers. So
Well, I'm sorry.
basically,
I am trying to get how this deals with conservation. If you have an issue with your neighbors regarding lot lines or anything like that, this is not the place for that discussion.
okay, all right, I understand that, but there's been a history here, and I'm just trying to point it out. They don't follow the rules.
Okay.
No, I appreciate that. And with this process that we're currently going through, they are going to have to be held to a high standard. There is an engineered plan now that's on record, so there won't be any potential for getting off track because we have a solid plan of record to work with.
Very good. All right. Thank you
And
very
so
much.
speak to the planning, the building department regarding that front deck.
Shall do. Thank
Okay.
you very much for your time.
Okay, is there anybody else who would like to comment on this project?
Move to close the hearing.
Second,
I have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Elisa,
yes.
Kwame, Carol,
Yes.
Denise,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Sandy, the hearing is closed.
Move to accept the project with a standard order of conditions, plus the condition that the tree removal include erosion control and measures to ensure that there is no clear cutting and just the trees that were uprooted are the ones that are being taken out by the roots.
And on,
And no
And-
mowing of salt
Oh,
marsh.
and salt marsh, no
any-
mowing must cease
on
and
any-
no further mowing on any of the salt marsh property.
Thank you. Was that it, what you're going to ask, Alyssa?
that was,
Lisa? Okay,
That
so
was.
that's,
I
yep,
seconded
so
it.
there is a motion and a second, all in favor. Lisa,
Yes,
Kwame, Carol,
Yes.
Denise,
Yes.
Mike,
Yep.
Sandy. Order of conditions with two stipulations on that order of conditions. And so Brian, give Mr. Mashet paperwork before you start any work, okay?
All right, thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next hearing is Wareham PV1. I would believe they wanted a request for a presentation, and so the hearing is open. And I'm going to ask that please direct your presentation to those topics associated with Conservation Commission and try to be as brief as possible. And who is here representing this project?
Good evening. I'm Christopher Wagner from VHB, and I'm joined by Betsy Mason from Clavin's Law Group, who is counsel for the applicant.
Okay, Mr. Bichette will read to the project.
Okay, let me just get this project plan up here.
How do you spell Betsy's last name?
It's Mason.
Good evening.
and-
It's
oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead,
it's just-
Betsy.
Yes,
Mason.
hello, Betsy Mason, Mason.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Okay, so this project involves the construction of a commercial solar array in the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland, isolated vegetated wetland, and partially within riverfront area. 3.5 megawatt solar array is proposed on this site. Some of the land at the site is already cleared, but the project would require the clearing of approximately 11 acres of existing wooded land. We do have a DEP file number for this project. The project had been continued for several meetings for some additional information and to get final comments from the town's consulting engineer. We have received comments recently from the engineer, so we do have that. And there was also the discussion at the last meeting of some of the project being within the riverfront area. And I would be recommending that that plan be modified to remove any of the project from altering riverfront area. So that's my comments at the moment. I know that some questions and comments that want to be made on this, so I'll let that happen and then we can further discuss the issue.
Okay, Christopher?
Good evening. We did I did talk to Dave earlier today, and we've been waiting on a comment letter from the peer reviewer for comments that were pertaining to conservation. Dave looked through the records, and there is a comment letter that was done by the peer reviewer. And that comment letter is from Charles Rowley, and that was done actually back in November. That was submitted, and that was for the planning board. But there are no additional comments unless Dave, you found or have gotten any additional comments from them. But there were no comments that were specifically pertaining to conservation in that letter. So Dave, I don't know if you said that you had spoken to the engineer about maybe a revision to that letter, but as it stands now, there are some stormwater related comments, but those have been addressed in the planning board process.
Yes, that's correct. The comment letter did reference the fact that some of the work was within the commission's jurisdiction and therefore would require permitting from the commission, but there were no comments beyond that. And whether or not he may modify that further, I'll discuss that with him, but it sounded like from him that he didn't have any further comments relative to the conservation issues on this project.
So the other subject that I wanted to touch on was the Riverfront Area question, which we talked about last time. Dave, if you want to, I know we have that sheet pulled up actually. So to refresh everyone's memory, the area in question, I think Dave is going to zoom in on it right now. There's a small amount of riverfront area down toward the bottom of this sheet. You can see the label 200-foot RA. That line is the 200-foot riverfront area, and there is some clearing that we are requesting to do in that zone. As we talked about last time, the reason for that is twofold. Obviously there's a shading issue that would need to be addressed with the trees that are there. But the other concern is a fall hazard, that a tree would fall on the array. And so the request would be, first of all, I should state that there's really no infrastructure or impervious surface proposed in this zone at all. It would remain vegetated, and we would not be clear cutting. The request from the applicant would be only to take down those trees that are, that are tall and would shade or potentially fall on the array. I did go out to that site and GPS trees that were, basically greater than 5 to 6 inches DBH. There are about 30 trees out there within this zone that meet that standard. And so the request would be to take down really only those trees in the array or within the riverfront area that have a risk of shader falling on the array. So it's a small number of trees, and the rest of the area would remain vegetated, as I said. And so there'd be really no other incursion into that area other than to put the fencing at the edge of the property, at the edge of the array.
The river.
Okay. Questions? Elisa?
Well, it's the same old, same old. We're taking down trees, and you're as careful as you can be. We're right on the river. We're going to be in the river. It's a huge, huge array. The town, I don't know. I'll listen to everybody else first. Thanks.
Kwame?
Actually, do you hear me?
Yes.
Now we can,
Oh,
yes.
horrible laptop. Anyways, yeah, I have to agree with Elisa. I mean, this is the same old song and dance, but we know the situation And we just have to try to abide by the rules. But yeah, I have to listen to everybody else at this moment.
Carol,
How many trees total are in that area?
Trees, including young saplings,
Well, you
or
said there's only 30 trees that you'd want to take down.
correct?
Out of
And
how many?
oh, well, if we're counting the saplings, I'm sure I don't have a specific number, but I'm sure it's dozens, right?
So-
I have I could pull up a couple of pictures to sort of give you a flavor of what it looks like there.
Well,
if I
so
could share
the
screen.
trees that would be left would be saplings.
Correct.
There
Yes.
would be no, you're going to take down all the mature trees.
Well, the other factor is that through the planning board process, they are asking for a 10-foot vegetated buffer around the entire, at least a 10-foot buffer around the entire project, which would include this eastern boundary. So, and in that 10-foot zone, they would be asking for vegetation management. In other words, potential taking down of trees, but certainly not clear cutting. That riverfront area is really only about 20 feet wide at its widest point right there. So the inner 10 feet, encompasses more than half of the area of the riverfront area. So again, so it would be really limited removal. And within that 10-foot buffer adjacent to the property line, it would be even more limited.
But the bottom line is still that you'd be cutting down all the mature trees, leaving saplings and underbrush.
We would want to take down trees that were, that presented a fall hazard or a shading concern, which would be trees that were, the tallest trees that are out there are probably in the range of 40 feet tall.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Denise?
How would it affect the project if they just did not put the array where these trees are?
There would be a loss of some of the panels. I don't have an exact number of how many panels would be lost there, but the concern really is not so much the fact that there would be no panels in that area, but again, if a tree were to fall on the panels, that would be an additional concern.
What I'm saying is if you just don't put the panels where these trees could fall, how does it affect the project?
Right. I mean, there would be a loss of panels along that strip.
Show me where we're talking about.
So exactly where Dave's cursor is actually. Yes. Right.
And how would it, in terms of what your expected output is or your final project would be if you just did not work in that area?
I don't want to throw out a guess at a number. I know obviously it would be a reduction in output, but I don't know exactly what level that would be.
Do you possibly find that out and let us know at a later date? What it would, how it would affect the project if you just did not work in that area?
If we need to go that route, we could find that out.
Okay, thank you.
Michael?
Do we lose Michael?
Nicole, do you have any questions?
I do not. Thank you.
Thank you. I do. Now, Dave, which way is north, south, east, and west?
Let me just back this out a little so you can see that.
North is right.
So the highway is on this side over here. This is Route 25 over here.
So that's on the south side?
Yes.
So these trees for shading are on the east side of the panels?
Correct.
That's right.
So you'll only be missing the morning sun for shading?
Yeah, morning and early afternoon potentially.
Okay. All right, now, this 10-foot zone that planning wants, is it inside or outside the fence area?
Inside from the property line.
Okay. So
I
that's
think,
10
I think what Sandy was asking was, is it inside the fence line or on the outside of the fence line?
No, yes. The fence line, I can see the fence line on the plan. The 10-foot set aside that planning wants, is that inside the fence line or outside?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Because it looks like it's off your property. Because it looks like the fence line is right on the lot line. Or am
I
I
believe,
reading it wrong?
yeah, the lot line is the thicker, the
Yep,
thicker dash line.
yep. So, well, if I'm looking at what's right up against 28, it looks like there is a road being proposed right along the fence line. And I was just wondering where the trees were that were not to be cut down. Because I can see the tree line. That's the little scallopy thing, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I'm just wondering where this 10-foot no tree cutting is.
So it would be, this is obviously the original plan set. There was a revised figure that was done for the planning board, which basically pushes out that scalloped line to the fence line.
Mhm. So we're not working with the most current plans.
The figure that was done for the planning board is basically a kind of, I guess, a glorified sketch figure that shows the zone that planning had requested.
And if I may, Betsy Mason, to
Yes, Betsy. Yep.
also weigh in. I believe we are working with most current plans here. The figure that Chris is referencing that we provided to the planning board is merely a proposal to the planning board that they're going to consider at their May 23rd meeting next week. Essentially, it's my understanding, and I'm trying to call up that figure on my computer, but
so am I.
that the 10-foot area that we're discussing, that vegetated buffer is within the property line. I mean, otherwise we wouldn't have the ability to say that we would have the ability to control that property. So we wouldn't be able to do anything about the trees if it were outside of the landowner's property.
Okay,
boundaries.
thank you. I know we can't talk about the rest of the project, but let's focus on the 200-foot riverfront. The other stuff is outside of conservation's coverage. Now, the trees outside of this 10-foot no-cut area are the ones you're talking about, the 30 trees more than 5 inches in diameter that you want to remove along the riverfront?
The number would be fewer than 30 outside of that 10-foot zone, because that 10-foot zone encompasses some of that riverfront area. So I would estimate it would be
Okay.
half of that or less.
So there's a good chance that you're only going to be looking, if you're, to me, shading is not that much of an issue because you're on the east side. And cutting down trees, leaving trees at 40 feet tall within the 10-foot no cut zone, you're still going to get shading, correct?
You would get some because there are additional trees along the property line.
So anything on the east and the south and the west will be shading this project within the 10 feet that planning wants. So you're really not talking 30 trees coming down on this riverfront because you won't touch anything. You're looking at only beyond the 10 feet. So there won't be as many 30 trees. Will you be topping any of the trees within the 10-foot zone?
That is still to be the actual vegetation management that planning is looking for has not been entirely hammered out yet. So that is a possibility of topping trees. that could be a possibility for this commission as well, topping trees instead of taking them down. But really the issues are, the twofold issues are shading, which I know you've talked to, and then fall hazard.
Okay. Now, if the fence line is definitely going through the riverfront, is there an issue that there's part of me that says, okay, the fence line is there, but I'm concerned about the tree loss or the vegetation loss within this 200 foot. You said it was 4780 square yards?
Correct. Square feet.
Oh yeah, 2 dashes, square feet. Okay, and we were looking for the size and the number of the trees, and you told us it was 30, but it's less than that if it's outside the 10 foot
Correct.
no cut zone. Well, I guess we're waiting on some information. You're gonna provide planning, a forest management plan, right? Did I hear that?
I
Or
don't know if there's
vegetation-
a vegetation management is, yeah.
And that vegetation management plan includes this 4780 square feet.
It would.
And when do you expect that to be done, to be presented to planning?
This coming Monday night at their May 23rd meeting.
I have another question.
Yeah, just, I'm trying to think if there was something else. Okay, Denise, go. I think I have something else, but okay.
Reference to the fence, do we have concerns? Obviously, the fence has to be up. But is this another one of those fences that is just blocking off an entire area? That,
Well, they gonna give us a 6-inch gap underneath the fence, but there's a
Right.
fence all the way around the array, but it's not. Dave, can you move out a bit so I can see more of the
I guess
total
my
array?
question is, does that have to be one continuous fence, or can they break it up and create corridors?
I don't think planning allows them that access since it's all one project. So we're up against up a bylaw of zoning, I'm sorry, planning that says
Yeah.
the whole thing must be fenced in.
Didn't they
Correct?
change it with the state?
Because
Wasn't
it looks like you could,
that?
looks like you could break that fencing up into 1, 2, 3, 4 parts. If they, I don't know if they're
What is
allowed to or not.
sorry, what does planning have to, is planning?
Well, in terms of, just to go back to this issue here, just so everybody's clear, the only part of the riverfront that's going to be potentially cut off if the fence goes in is this this piece right here. Okay, so it's this little piece right here of
Oh, it's
riverfront
just
that would
that little
be
piece.
cut off if the fence was placed along this stretch. Now, as I said earlier, this isn't a huge piece. I would just say, my recommendation is just move the project so you don't have to alter any of it. And, that's my recommendation to the commission.
Move the project where, Dave?
What's that?
Just
Move
remove,
the fence,
project
move the
where?
fence, sorry. Move the fence up to the 200-foot line, make it a curved fence as opposed to a straight fence, and that gets us out of it.
Exactly. That's my recommendation.
and that would eliminate the trees cutting down and stuff too?
Oh, no. No, that's totally, by moving that fence to the 200-foot line, we're
Yeah.
out of it. It's then all up to planning.
Planning.
No, but I think
And-
what Denise is saying is that would then eliminate any tree cutting within the 200 foot, which, yes, that is the case. There shouldn't be,
Yes.
my recommendation is there shouldn't be anything happening within the 200 foot, including tree cutting.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, to move that, why are they coming straight across the fence? Why aren't they just getting out of our area?
Maybe because they didn't expect us to object.
Oh.
There is a provision in the Wetlands Protection Act that, that allows for limited amounts of work in the riverfront area. And as this is the outermost portion of the riverfront area, and also the area to the east of this area, in other words, at the bottom of this sheet, the neighboring property is a cranberry bog down to where you can see actually the vegetation line. Dave, I don't know if you can see where I'm talking, but the vegetation line along the bottom of that sheet right there. Beyond that line, the area is cleared. It slopes down to the next cranberry bog, the bottom of the cranberry bog. You can see where that vegetation line curves off the sheet. That's about the bottom of the cranberry bog. But you can see most of that riverfront area is actually bordering not empty space, but cleared space and altered area. It's a farm road around the bog and then a bog. So, you know, that was the reasoning, that was a part of the reasoning for this request, is that, again, this portion of riverfront area and the river that it is bordering does not form a wildlife habitat corridor, because it basically runs from the bog to Route 25 and under Route 25, and doesn't really provide the same the same, you know, benefits that an unrestricted or an unaltered area next door would provide.
I think Dave's trying to get us a GIS map of the area.
Could I just ask a question? It's related to conservation in the fact that we have what's attractive and so on. And I sort of have forgotten, what are you going to do to make this array nice to look at, sort of natural and whatever?
Well,
I
the
think
array,
that's
sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, that's why there's a 10-foot buffer from planning.
The 10-foot buffer, what's going to be in that 10-foot buffer, Sandy?
Trees that exist today.
I
You
think
can't
that-
see, you cannot see this from 25.
Correct.
That's correct.
So where are we on this?
So this area here is the area where trees would be removed, basically, all this space that I'm pointing to.
If-
That's
If I
the-
may, not all of it, but
Well, a good chunk
Thank
of
you.
it, let's say. But
But
that's,
that gives you, okay, that gives everybody an idea what we're talking about, because that's behind municipal maintenance.
Okay,
Right.
where is the area that is our concern? Oh,
it's kind of
Show
right,
the river,
it's kind of right up in this
Right there.
area.
Just a little bit, yeah, right where yes, that's it, that spot. It's not even really that much that you're. It's
Yeah,
it's a little it's a tiny sliver. Yeah, that's about the state of
then
it.
Why don't you?
But it
just
runs
move-
up
move
north
it-
of that property boundary, where you can see the cleared area where the adjacent bogs are. That's part of it.
okay,
And you haven't considered just moving your fence and taking us out of this?
We have considered it. We wanted, we wanted to bring this to the commission and say that this is a requested action for this project. And again, we already talked about the reasons why this would be in our opinion an approvable action.
well, this has been on the plate since October 6th, so there's been a lot of time for discussions. Okay, I'm hearing that sorry, I would like to continue and hear the result of the planning board, because I would like to hear the vegetation plan you have, including this 200-foot, this section of the riverfront. Anybody else?
I feel,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
We're-
Well, is this, Madam Chairman, is this the issue? This, I guess, the singular issue that is impeding this commission from?
That is
making a
correct,
de-
because
making a decision?
our only coverage of this site is the 200-foot riverfront. Other than
Agreed.
that, we're outside, it's outside of our
Okay.
coverage.
Agreed. In that case, the applicant is willing then to accede to that request. We did talk about it earlier today. I did talk about it with the applicant earlier today,
Okay,
thinking that this this eventuality might present itself. And if that's the case, then the applicant is willing to make that move, if we can get to a close and an issuance of an order.
Great, then I think we'll look forward to a revised plan on June 1st. Anybody else want to comment on this?
Can we just move to continue to June 1st to see a revised plan moving?
I think,
Second.
I think that's
I think,
what we're looking. I have a
what
motion
about-
and a,
What about other public comment? I'm sorry.
oh, sorry, I was just so focused on. Okay, is there anybody want to comment on this project? Because it will be continued until June 1st.
Yes, please. My name is Barry Cosgrove.
Okay,
repeat-
Barry,
Barry, who?
it's,
Cosgrove.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
yes,
Yes.
I'd like to share my screen, please. And
All
I'd
right.
like to hopefully do this
You okay with
correctly.
that, Madam Chair?
Oh, my God.
yes.
Forgot.
I locked mine in the other room so that you didn't walk across the screen.
Mine just came too. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
Now, how long is this presentation?
I'm hoping I can get it done very quickly.
Because
I'd
I'm on,
like-
I said, Barry, before you start, I said at the beginning, only associated with conservation. And we're in, that's it's 200-foot riverfront, and that's what we only like to speak to on this project.
Yeah, well, I submit to you that there's actually more
Yeah, but
at issue
it
here.
might very well be more, but it's outside of our scope.
Well, the point is that public is permitted to have an opportunity to make comment so that you guys can make a decision on whether that's the case or not.
And comment on associated with our wetland bylaws.
Exactly correct. So I'll begin just with this photograph, hoping that it will be helpful. This is the property when it was acquired in 2007, 2008. And as you will see, all of this area, 11, 12 acres up here, the other portion down here, call it a hockey stick or golf club shape. You'll notice it's all trees and your protected area runs along here, okay? It runs along here. Now, what I'd like to do is show you a image from the applicant, and I'll hopefully blow this up. And what I'd like to ask you to pay attention to is, first of all, you can see that massive amount of tree removal and mining has occurred here. And what's most importantly is that when people earlier today are talking about slivers, this dotted green line, according to the legend provided by the applicant, this is the buffer zone. So within your jurisdiction and within this buffer zone, there has been an enormous amount of tree removal and there has been an enormous amount of sand removal.
Okay,
And
Barry,
this-
we're not seeing any images.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Did I not share that properly? Apologize, my mistake. Is that better?
There we go.
There we
I
go.
beg your pardon. I'm not an expert at this stuff, but the point I wanted to make is that you remember this used to be all trees. All the trees are gone. It's all
Okay,
in mind. The dotted
Mhm.
green line, according to the applicant, is the protected zone. So if you allow me to zoom in and move from the south to the north, 25's down here, municipal buildings over here, well within your jurisdiction, unquestionably within your jurisdiction, there has been an enormous amount of tree removal, an enormous amount of sand removal. And this continues for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of feet. I'm up in the northern section now. You'll see it continues and it continues and it continues. Remember, these are the designations provided by the applicant. Anything inside or to the east of this green line, west, Charge Pond Road, east, is area where without permits, there have been alterations. It continues all the way up to the far northern tip.
Okay,
Getting down to the bottom, just to pick up on your conversation before, where we said there's only a sliver at work. You'll notice here that what's being proposed, in fact, is a substantial amount of tree removal inside the protected zone. And if I read their legend right, even within the 30-foot no-touch zone,
Wait a
and
minute.
also within the 200-foot stream line.
Okay, Christopher, are you removing everything inside that red lot line up
No.
to the green riverfront? So that those trees are not going to be touched in this project.
That's correct. We're not doing anything in that area, well, specifically because it's 200-foot riverfront area. Also, I would just point out that the areas in the northern part of the site are only recently expanded to that level with the bog expansion next door.
And it's up to the town on their earth removal policy, not conservation, but okay.
Well, let me address
Okay,
that.
Barry, what's next
What's next is to
on
address.
this project?
So on that exact point, I anticipated that there'd be this notion that, hey, I'm in the wrong place. That earth removal is with the Board of Selectmen, and that's wrong. The Wetland Wareham Protective Bylaw explicitly provides jurisdiction for the removal, excavation, and dredging of sand within the protected area. And it uses the word alteration. And that is clearly what's occurred here, because it addresses your jurisdiction, says removal of any kind, changing of pre-existing drainage characteristics, filling, which we'll get to, and then they say removal again.
Okay, Barry,
And-
what would you like us to do for something that's already been done?
I'm going to get to that. So I want to address your point about the jurisdiction. The question, the application's photos and narrative make it clear that the land has been stripped and altered through excavation without a permit from you guys.
Your screen's not being shared again,
Oh,
Barry, just in
gosh.
case you didn't know that.
Let me do a better job at that. I'm sorry. Apologize, folks. All this time, this thing has not been So what I was trying to point out, just very quickly to repeat, is that in point of fact, earth removal, it's not the sole jurisdiction select. It is within your.
Well, I
protected bylaw.
guess I'll ask the selectman that lives right next to me. Alan, sorry, my
Well,
impression,
I'm showing you
Okay.
your bylaw, and I would be very
Yep.
grateful if you would allow me to. have
yep,
my
I
chance
will,
here.
yep,
No,
Yep.
This is your bylaw. This is your
Yours.
jurisdiction. Yours meaning the wetland protective bylaw. And it explicitly prohibits removal and excavation within your protective zones. And it uses the word alter. And again, this is the exact quotes from your bylaw. Removal of any kind, of any material, changing of draining characteristics, filling, which we'll get to. Removal of material, it says it again, cutting of trees. And listen, it's not speculation. The applicant himself or themselves have made clear through their photographs and their narratives, the strip of land has been altered through excavation, explicitly in the areas of your jurisdiction. That's an alteration.
okay,
So despite the long-standing habitual neglect of your bylaw, which in many ways is actually more comprehensive than the typical sand removal bylaw we think of when we think about the Board of Selectmen, this project proposes to make those violations permanent and even more. I point out also that this tree removal it's prohibited not just under your bylaw, but also should only have been performed by an application to you and to the Department of Conservation and Recreation for forestry cutting practice under Chapter 183, Chapter Massachusetts General Law 132. Whole other set of rules that were ignored. Additionally, you clear cut, as they have, more than an acre of land, and the Clean Water Act requires stormwater discharge protection with an NPDES permit. This too was not done within your protected zone. And remember, we're going to get to it. There's cutting trees, there's digging, and there's fill. And when you do under the NPDES rules, here are the risks that happen when you don't have a set of plans or restrictions when you're performing these activities, which eviscerated part of your protective zone. There was no sediment control. What's been dumped over there? Remember, everything moves east to west over there. It's also noteworthy that this particular site was a site where the town had to fine the operator for being so aggressive with their digging that they actually dug into town land and sold the sand, apparently. The town fined them thousands of dollars for it. So it's not a first-time offender. And it's on the list.
Could you go back to that one picture that you had and show me where the area that you say was in our jurisdiction that has been clear cut?
I have to go back to the other
Yeah, I'm sorry.
slide. No, that's okay. I just want to try to do it right. I'm not very good at this, so I got to go to share screen. Got to go to this. Okay, so right here, we'll start from the north this time, okay?
You're not sharing yet.
Oh, gosh, did it again.
Oh, golly.
Wait, I'm sorry. Does that help now?
Yes.
Is it there? Okay, so now we're going to start up in the north, Charge Pond Road here. Remember, everything flows this way. If anything bad is going to happen, it's going to move from here right into your protected zone.
Okay, and for Denise, the green line.
Anything east of this green line.
Is
All
the
right, so nothing-
200-foot riverfront.
Okay, so
No,
nothing
that's not
happened up
correct.
in that.
That's not correct. That's not correct. The green line is
Then
not
what
the
is the,
200-foot river.
Barry, what is
It's
the
a-
green line? Isn't that the
the green line-
200-foot riverfront?
No,
No,
that's the
it is not.
100-foot protected zone,
It's the 100-foot buffer zone.
buffer zone.
Of the river.
The
To the
green,
bog.
no, there is the to
Of the
to the
wetland.
to the bogs
To
adjacent.
the
wetlands.
bogs and the bogs or the wetlands. So
Yeah.
that's the 100-foot from the bog.
Yeah,
It's a 100-foot,
so
the 100-foot buffer zone from the bogs. I would just point out again that the bogs were altered recently, and that is what that solid green line shows, is the outline of the bogs as they are after alteration. So the previous iteration of those bogs, which is what's shown in the photo, is what was there before. The 100-foot buffer zone extending from those bogs at that time would not have extended onto the site. The bogs were only altered recently, which throws the buffer zone onto the site. Present day.
Okay. So we're looking at a previous
Well, the-
configuration of the bogs causing the green line that we're looking now.
No,
no,
the solid
The-
green line.
Is the previous configuration.
Nope, the solid green line is the current configuration. What's pictured
Oh.
is the previous configuration.
All right, so
I'm sorry, we're comparing apples and oranges, so.
well, what's being said is
Whoa.
that we are, so the job should have been for the applicant to get this right. I submit to you, to answer the question was asked, what's the area that's in the protected zone? It's east or to the right-hand side of the dotted green line. The gentleman is now trying to make the claim that this line would have been somewhere else in the past. Okay? You can go and Google it and you can look at these bogs and they've been cornered off and they're essentially in the same location. But to answer the question, all of this is your jurisdiction.
Okay, Barry, what do you want us to do with something that's already happened?
Well, I'll
We're
get to
only
that.
trying to look, well, can you make it quicker?
Well,
well,
doing the best I can.
Does that mean that more of the area than what we were showed previously is now within our jurisdiction?
That's exactly
That's what his
my point. And
is.
if I'd be permitted to continue, I could get to
Well,
that.
I think you've made that point. I just think we need to verify that somehow.
Yeah, so let me try to pick up where I left off. Can you see this now?
Yes.
Okay, so I left off with they didn't, the forestry plan, they didn't have an NPS plan. And I mentioned that this has been very aggressive sand mining operation that the town has fined. This is a town that's under investigation by the town for mining. And what will now clearly be an investigation, including mining into the protected zone. They acknowledge this happened, and there's no agricultural exemption here. This is not 621A property. So the wetland enforcement manual, yours, says that unauthorized activity in a buffer zone, failure to do a request for applicability on an NOI, is sufficient jurisdiction to take enforcement action. So,
Okay.
so what I'm asking for by this presentation is that before you even consider this application, you need to consider the enforcement action for what's happened in the past. And by this presentation, and I'll give a copy to Mr. Bichette, I'd ask that be, in fact, a formal enforcement evaluation. And then you know the rules on enforcement. I've been listening to your meetings for the last 3 sessions, something like 15 hours. Tonight alone, we talked about no mowing of salt marsh, trees cut close to the water, care that machinery don't hurt other trees, no clear cutting. What about erosion control? All of that stuff happened. You have the authority and indeed the obligation, where you have these alterations, to deny the permit and
Okay.
to engage in an evaluation.
Okay, Mr. Bichette, sorry, I'm gonna say, Mr. Bichette, will you bring back the plans for the total project, including the top of the hockey stick?
Yes.
Where-
I'll continue
Yeah.
here. So this is a photo you remember for 2008. All,
I think what we need to know is, Mr. Pichette, what definitely is in our jurisdiction and what is not. And is there some way to verify what he's telling us in terms of where the green dotted line is at being in our jurisdiction, so that our jurisdiction is beyond what the small area that we were presented with tonight?
and
Is there
and
some
let
way
me
to
try to make
Betsy
that
Mason, if I
point.
may, at least on behalf of the applicant, the green dotted line, as Mr. Wagner's explained, is not relevant here. The current plans before the commission are properly and accurately depicting the resource areas, the buffer zones, and the riverfront area as a resource area.
Yeah,
with
Betsy,
regard-
that's why I'm trying to get the original plan so I can see the whole plan, including the
Yes.
area that has been deforested. Yes,
Yes,
thank you.
yes, and if I may just follow up on that, this applicant did not deforest the sort of the northern portion of the site, the top of the hockey stick. To the extent that that is something that the town wants to pursue, presumably the Board of Selectmen would do that under its jurisdiction. And I feel that I'm probably telling you what you already know, but it's very unlikely here that this site will come under the Board of Selectmen's scrutiny. Moreover, it's my understanding, and I will say this is more hearsay from a conversation with the landowner than confirmed fact by documents, etc. But I'm not sure about the accuracy of Mr. Cosgrove's allegation with regard to aggressive sand removal activities, and more importantly, whether there were fines, etc., and whether the town is currently going after the landowner for those things. I would suggest that perhaps a conversation with the town administrator would be helpful there. But I would question the underlying proposed factual scenario there.
Okay,
Thank
on
you.
that point, I have spoken to the town administrator, town council, and I welcome verification of anything I said. There's nothing speculative at all. So the sand mining continued. And look, here is your buffer zone. In the course of this massive industrial scale sand mining, look at the size of this equipment. Look at the shadows here. Look at the cuts. Look at the depth elevation changes from here to here. Remember, everything flows towards your wetland. Everything flows towards your wetland. This is a massive operation. Their road that they built for this sand removal operation is where your protective zone is. Now, let's look at this picture here, moving forward to 2018. Is that groundwater they've hit into now? Remember, your area is down here. Is this groundwater? It's a serious question. Now, I'd ask you to really pay attention to this in 2017. This is the northern end. You see, it's all sand, okay? Now, look at this, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. A year later, your regulations include fill. Now, you can see unequivocally that these are dark dump truck loads of something that have come in. Now, I wasn't there. I can't tell you what it is, but I got a pretty good theory what it is if you've seen any other bogs that have been stripped. And this is your protected area. Now look what happens. Oh, by the way, they don't make any secret about it. This is their photo. There's that fill.
Okay,
As we continue, they
I'm
then
trying to
spread-
get to the point of what you're
the
trying to
point, the
make.
point I'm
I
trying to
want
make
to,
is, which
yeah,
I've
they've
answered
done-
again and again,
okay,
is
they've
that
done
they have
something?
done something in the protected zone that's not permitted. It
All
includes
right.
the tree removal, just like when you talk to
Then-
your other customers, applicants, they've done fill. And we need to know what the consequences of that are.
Mi-
Let me make this
Mr.
point.
Barry, please, quicker.
Well, it would be quicker
If
without
I stop
interruptions.
interrupting. Yes, I know that.
I'd be grateful for that. Heaven knows I haven't interrupted anyone else, so I'm grateful for that. They did 2 test pits for this project in April of 2021. And notice how high the groundwater is. It's only 44 inches. Now, they did the test pits way down on the south, but what about out on the north, where they've dug down deeper? In your protected jurisdiction, every comment I'm making is within your jurisdiction. And they're going to put over 2,000 steel poles several feet into the ground. Are those down now into the groundwater in your protected zone? The Massachusetts, and if you don't remember anything on this, and I'm hopeful Mr. Pichette can be helpful here. If you don't remember anything in this presentation, it's this slide. Work outside the buffer zone. All the stuff you're so anxious to say we have nothing to do with. In point of fact, work that's been done which alters the abutting wetland becomes your jurisdiction. What they have done is they've not only eviscerated a portion of the protected zone, they've eviscerated 12 acres abutting it. They've merged it. And all of the flow is from the bad side, from one side to where your protected zone is. And have they hit groundwater? And what's the security of those slopes? They boast about the fact that they're going to have sediment controls when they finish the project, but where were the sediment controls when they were doing all this unpermitted work without having done an NOI as required? Remember, all this over our sole source aquifer. Lots of unanswered questions here. I haven't seen the report from Mr. Rowley, but does it talk of all the existing and proposed conditions? Does it address the topographical operations of your protected zone? Is it hydrologic and hydrogeologic analysis? What about groundwater management? Have they gone within 4 feet of the groundwater? That's in your jurisdiction. And what's that fill? What's in that fill? Easy to find out. Remember, these posts could be down into the groundwater based upon that digging in your territory. Now, I want to address the stream. They talk about the stream ending at Route 25 as if that somehow means, well, you don't have to worry about it. Well, actually, that stream continues and goes into something called the Atlantic Ocean. And you're authorized to have all this work done in some detail, including test pits and monitoring wells to figure out what this prior work has resulted for your wetland activity. And all this talk about the 200 feet, remember, Your bylaw says you can't have a permit within that 200 feet unless you can prove there's no practical alternative. Well, there's a practical alternative. You shoehorn fewer solar panels into the project. That's easy. They can talk about shade. It's money. It's dollars and cents. It's one thing to want maximum solar panels. It's another to need something where somebody has the unfortunate situation where they have to shoe in a Title V in a small lot. That's not what's happening here. They're maximizing dollars and minimizing your protected zone. I ask you this. They're telling you they've done this work in the protected zone in reckless disregard of your rules. What does it say to us to say, oh, well, whatever, let's just approve it. It's all done. What's done is done. That's what they want you to do. That's their whole strategy here. What's done is done. To answer your question, how do you address that? You look at your bylaws and you see what your bylaws say, and they give you your answer. You have absolute authority to engage in an investigation and enforcement. And what about mitigation? I've been on a bunch of your calls where people inadvertently cut down a tree or some phragmites and other things, and you want them to go back. A yes vote says, look, continued indifference to you guys is fine. It endorses the tactic of cutting down trees and sand mining, and there's probably people sitting on this call hoping you just fall for it so they can come in and ask for the same. What do we say to all the people on the phone waiting to come up next? The people who new in town, the people who put their fire pit too close to the pond or whatever, and they have to move it. How can we look the other way in this massive amount of activity? And lastly, I just want to say this on the issue of speculation. We call it Google Earth. That's the marketing term. These are NASA satellites. People who say NASA satellites are speculation, I don't think so. I ask that this be investigated, that this project be put on hold until your investigation is concluded. Happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bichette, will you bring up the plans that show the full extent of this work site, not just along the 200-foot riverfront? Thank you, Barry.
Sure.
Well, we're bringing that up. Is there any questions from the board for Mr. Cosgrove? Elisa,
Not yet again.
Kwame, Carol,
No questions at this time.
Denise,
No questions.
Michael,
None, thank you.
Nicole.
No questions, thank you.
Kwame, I went over you quickly.
Sandy, what's your question?
Oh, it's all good. Thank you.
Okay, so if I take a look at this plan, Mr. Bichette, the semicircle near on the right side, C203, that is, okay. That is outside the 200-foot. It's not a riverfront up there, is it? It's 100-foot of wetlands being the zone of the cranberry bogs, right?
That's correct. The riverfront starts down closer towards this part of
okay.
the project
So,
over here.
but up there, it's the 200, it's the 100-foot of wetlands,
That's correct.
of which, based on those pictures, have previously been cleared.
Right. So I think one of the questions that has to be understood is what amount of this work could have been done in terms of agricultural practices, which there is an exemption under the bylaw for such things, and what part of it wasn't that and was just basically a violation. So I think that's what's not clear at this moment.
If I could address that point.
Wait, Barry, sorry, wait, Mr. Bichette first.
Sorry.
So that's I think what needs to be looked into. Now, when a property is used for agricultural purposes, there are certain rights associated with that. It doesn't necessarily have to be within Chapter 61A to be property that's used as agricultural land. So again, this is something that needs to be clearly understood. If violations did occur, that should have been projects that we permitted, then I agree that enforcement actions should be taken. But that's something that I would have to look into, obviously, more closely to determine that.
If this is the appropriate time, I can tell you that the property is not and has not been in chapter 61A, 1. 2, I can tell you that your bylaw talks about extraction and alterations, and it doesn't create an exemption for agriculture. And then third, I'll point out that even if it did, the rules regarding eligibility for agricultural exemption have 3 critical components. The first of which is the land had to have been in agricultural use in the first instance, which it hasn't, and which it wasn't, and which it still isn't. Second, the activity had to be concomitant and subservient to an agricultural purpose. That did not happen.
Well,
Where's the
these are
agriculture-
your assertions, Barry, but these are not necessarily the facts that have been proven out. Land on this site has been used for agricultural purposes. The adjoining property has, and there are certain activities that can be done and allowed that are allowed to be done on land that's adjacent to bog or other property that can be done, even if it's not actively used as a cranberry bog. So
It has to be
again,
the same property owner, Dave. It has to be the same property owner, and we don't have that here. And the end
well,
use.
that again,
Sorry, Barry.
that's something that we have to look into, that I have to verify versus just, having you say that that's the case. So we will look into this now that this has been raised and find out if in fact this was an agricultural activity that could be done or if it was a violation. And then we'll have to take an action at that point.
All right. All right. Is there anything else? If not, anybody else like to comment on this project? If not, we will continue it until June 1st for a new plan and a report from Mr. Bichette regarding ownership and previous activity on the site.
I'd just like to make one more point, Madam Chairman.
Yes.
It might help if I can just share my screen quickly to show you one figure.
Okay.
All right.
Hold on.
Oh, do you have to let me?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. All right. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. So this is the figure that we were talking about before. And I just wanted to point out just to make sure that everyone understands this solid green line that I'm tracing with my cursor right now, and this solid green line are the bogs as they appear today. Google Earth actually has an updated photo, so you can sort of see that borne out. This is the recent photo. This is what's out there today. That's what was sort of delineated, and that's what is throwing this buffer zone onto the property. These bogs that are pictured are the bogs as they appeared previously before they were altered, which just happened within the past year, I believe, maybe 2 at the most. But so these bogs were obviously much more located much more to the east. So this buffer zone would not have been on the property at all in any of these sections, with the exception of this small area up here. That was the only thing I wanted to point out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. If nothing else, I'll take a motion to continue until 6/1.
So moved.
Second,
All in favor, Elisa?
Yes.
Kwame,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Denise,
yes.
Mike, Sandy, will continue it until 6/1.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next hearing is Joseph Barboza. Is there anybody here representing this project? And I believe we did have a letter from, oh no, this is a different one. This is not the dock.
This is the garage.
We were continuing based on the site was not staked out, so we could not know. Oh, wait a minute.
Yes, and we didn't
Yeah,
know
that's
the
correct.
changes in elevation.
Let me pull that plan up while we're talking here.
Sorry. Okay. We were waiting for, okay. Hi, back.
Are you all set, Madam Chair?
Mm. Yeah, don't give Alan a tool.
Uh,
All right, next. Okay, all set.
Okay, so this, well, first of all, is the applicant's rep here.
Oh, yes. Kevin? Or somebody else representing this project?
I believe he was online earlier, the applicant's representative.
Well, I think we're just waiting to
Hello?
see.
I'm here.
There he
My microphone is muted. So Evan Watson with W Engineering. Also, Roy Delaney with Lighthouse Land Surveying is here as well.
Okay,
Okay, so the project site is at 274 Cremisa Road, and the project involves the construction of an addition to the existing dwelling in the buffer zone to a coastal bank and within a coastal flood zone. 28 by 24 garage addition is proposed, approximately 47 feet from the top of the coastal bank. A gravel driveway off of Grace Lane would also be installed to access the new garage. Hay bales and silt fence would be installed between the work and the resource area for erosion control. At the last meeting, the hearing had been continued for having the garage staked out and also for some grades to be shown if any were to be changed. We do have a DEP file number. I have been to the site this week and the proposed addition had been staked out. So at this point, when the issuance of the order of conditions for this project with the standard conditions. And that the driveway remain as a pervious driveway.
okay. Evan, anything to add?
No,
Roy.
that covers it. That covers it just fine.
Okay. Questions on the board, Elisa?
Do you have anything to do with grass and all that sort of thing around it? It was really manicured. Being so close to the water, is that just standard conditions?
Standard conditions indicates that is a low nitrogen reducing nitrogen releasing fertilizer are in our standard conditions.
All right, I'll think about it. Thanks.
Okay, Kwame,
No questions.
Carol,
No question.
Denise,
No questions.
Mike,
No questions, thank you.
Nicole.
No questions, thank you.
I have none. Is there anybody online that would like to talk to this project? Hearing none.
Move to close the hearing.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to close the hearing. All in favor, Elisa,
Yes.
Kwame,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Denise, Mike, Sandy, the hearing is closed.
Move to approve the project with standard order of conditions and a condition that the driveway remain pervious.
Second.
That's the motion and it's second and all in favor, Elisa,
Yes.
Kwame,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Denise, Michael, Sandy,
Yes.
yes. All right. Please do not start any work until you have the paperwork from Mr. Bichette.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Night.
You too.
Okay. The next continued hearing was the Hamilton Beach Association.
Yep.
Is there anybody here representing that project?
I believe they're still waiting for some additional information on this particular project. So that may be why there's no one here for the hearing tonight. So I'd recommend we continue to the next meeting.
I move that we continue the hearing to the next meeting, June 1st.
Second.
That's motion and the second, all in favor, Elisa?
Yes.
Kwame, Carol, Denise,
Yes.
Mike, Sandy. It's continued until 6/1. Next hearing is Robert Paroli, 278 Cremist Road. Is there anybody here representing this project?
I'm Bill Madden from GAF Engineering on behalf of Robert Paroli.
Thank you, Mr. Bichette.
I'm just going to pull the plan.
We did get a letter from Mr. Buckminster.
Happened.
Okay, so the project site is at 278 Cremisa Road, and the project involves the construction of a pier ramp and float system and a boat lift within land under the ocean, land containing shellfish, and within a coastal flood zone. The site is also within the estimated habitat of rare and endangered species. There's a 240-foot pier ramp and float system proposed out into Buzzards Bay. The structure would be partially on land, and the structure would be approximately 198 feet out from the mean high water line. The structure would require installing 37 12-inch diameter pilings. At the last meeting, the hearing had been continued because the float marking how far out the structure would go was not in place, and we were also waiting for comments from the harbor master. The float has been put out there. I did go by the site and did witness where that exists. So that part of the requirement has been satisfied. And we did receive comments from the harbor master, who did not have any negative comments about the project. We have also received comments from Mass Division of Marine Fisheries, who didn't have any negative comments, and also from Mass Natural Heritage and Endangered Species. We do have a DEP file number for the project, so with those items in place, I would recommend the issuance of the order of conditions for this project with the standard conditions, and that the pilings for the project be driven into place, and that there be no jetting of piles as we typically require. So that's the comments that I have.
Mr. Madden?
I have nothing to add. Dave's accurately summarized the status of the project as of now.
Okay, thank you. Questions, Elisa?
You're muted.
Kwame?
Elisa.
Yeah, oh, no, Elisa's back. Sorry.
I am. No.
Kwame?
No, I visited the site initially the first round, and I just wanted to hear what Division of Marine Fisheries had to say, and that came through. So I have no questions at this time.
Carol?
No questions at this time.
Denise?
Just, Dave can repeat the thing about the piling driven into place. I didn't catch what he was saying, and I just want to get my notes correctly.
Yeah, in terms of the methodology to install the pilings, that they just be driven into place and not air jetted into place, which can cause turbidity. So,
okay, thank you.
Close everything in.
Michael?
No, thank you.
Nicole,
No questions, thank you.
this work will be done off barge,
Yes,
so we'll have the issue of a high and, so many hours within high tide.
right.
Okay. Is there anybody online that would like to speak to this project?
Move to close the hearing.
Second.
All in favor, Elisa,
Yes,
Kwame,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Denise,
Yes.
Michael, Sandy, yes, the hearing is closed.
Move to accept the project with the standard order of conditions and the condition that the pilings be driven into place with no jetting into place and that the work be done off a barge with the high tide stipulations in place.
Second.
And the motion, I have a second. All in favor, Elisa, Kwame,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Denise, Michael, Sandy, done. Bill, don't start the work until you get the paperwork from Mr. Bichette, okay?
Very good. Thanks very much.
Next hearing. Joseph Barboza. Mr. Bill, you're here for that one also?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Mr.
All right.
Bichette,
Let me get that plan up here. So this property is at 274 Cremisa Road. This is the one we just talked about, the addition on the house a couple of hearings ago. And this is the property that's next door to the pier we just approved. At this site, the project involves the construction of a pier off the end of an existing stone groin to a ramp and float system, also with a boat lift. And in this case, they're proposing a walkway around the boat lift as well. And this is in land under the ocean, land containing shellfish, and within a coastal flood zone. And also within the estimated habitat of rare and endangered species. The structure would extend out 199 feet into Buzzards Bay from the mean high water line, but a large portion of the distance is the existing stone groin. So the extension is 73 feet off the end of the stone groin. In this case, we had continued the hearing again for the float to be placed out in the water, and also from comments from the harbor master. And again, the float has been put out there, and we did receive comments from the harbor master with no negative comments. And we also had comments again from Mass Division of Marine Fisheries and Natural Heritage, again with no negative comments for the project. We do have a DEP file number. My issue with this project was simply that this extra walkway should not be permitted as part of the work. Beyond that, I'm fine with recommending the approval of the project minus that piece of the puzzle, with the same conditions that we put in place on the previous project.
Bill?
The only thing I would want to add, I mean, the client was interested in having that walkway around that boat lift. It does provide a measure of safety and access into for a boat that is on a lift. The other agencies that had to report back on it, they reviewed on the same plan. They didn't have any adverse comment relative to that walkway. And you do, in other parts of the country, you do see your boat lift enveloped by either a fixed pier or an elevated dock, basically for the purpose of providing good access to the boat or to the vessel that's on the lift. So, if you're so inclined to approve it, we greatly desire to have it on the as part of the project. And it is a comment was made at a prior meeting that it was not a water dependent use. It actually is a water dependent use. It is part and parcel with a residential dock and pier assembly, and it is would be considered water dependent.
Questions on Commission, Elisa?
David, why are you against the walkway?
Well, I think for several reasons. I think it requires the installation of a number of extra pilings. It limits that much more area where anybody else would be able to access that area. It isn't really a necessity, it's more of a want. We've approved quite a number of boat lifts in town, none of which have this additional feature that I recall. So it's certainly not a necessity, it's just more of a want from this particular client. As you saw in the project next door, we approved a boat lift that did not have this. So I just think, again, it's more alteration than is really needed for what's being permitted.
Thank you.
Kwame?
Other than the alterations, I don't really have any other comments. So.
Carol?
My question is, how many additional pilings would it require for the catwalk?
I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
1, 2, 3,
7, 8.
4, 5, 6.
Okay, thank you.
And there, 8 would be an accurate number.
All right, thank you.
Denise?
And you discussed with him about the removal of this, and if we approved it without that, he would be okay with that?
He's
Obviously,
been
we-
away. I did not have a chance to discuss it. I mean, certainly it's however, the commission wishes to evaluate and approve or deny the project, and I would respect whatever outcome is decided upon.
Thank you.
Michael?
Yeah, same thing. I'm not a fan of that, that catwalk or walkway around it. Other than that, I'm the same, what was it? Boat, no pun intended, with everybody else. Go ahead.
Okay. Nicole?
No questions, thank you.
Bill, the boat lift is intended for the boat to come in with bow toward the land, correct?
Yes,
And access off the port side will be to a fixed pier.
yes,
So the access off the starboard side to this new pier is nice to have.
yes,
So he has access off this boat lift to a fixed standard pier as it is. Okay.
right. And I think though that from a maintenance point of view on a boat, with a situation like this, you're afforded a lot more opportunity to conduct maintenance, whether it be washing, cleaning, waxing, or whatever, with a setup such as this, a little bit more restricted when it's just the boat lift in and of itself. Just becomes a little
Now,
more difficult.
It's not as if they've got a lot of boulders in that area, so they could swing the boat around and have the starboard against the fixed pier. So they could have access to both sides of the boat by just doing a 180. All right.
Yes.
Is there anybody online that would like to speak to this project? If the commission would Is the commission considering doing away with the catwalk? If that's the case, then I would make a motion to get a revised plan for the next meeting that does not include the catwalk.
Or why would you have to get that? Could we not just have Dave check it over, have them do it?
No,
Check it?
I think we need a plan with it gone. So come back and look at us somewhere down the line of certification of compliance that we have a corrected plan in place if the commission does not want the catwalk.
Right, move to continue for
I mean,
removal of the
Bill wants
catwalk.
a question.
Just, if you were inclined to want to approve the project, I mean, I think there's enough language on the plan that we could say approved subject to the removal of that 3-foot wide catwalk and 8 piles, and I would just provide you with the revised plan after the meeting. Whatever you're comfortable with.
All right, I'm gonna ask Elisa, yes or no?
Yes.
Wait for a revised plan or do with this this
Do it as a
note?
modification.
Kwame,
Agreed. Yes.
Carol,
I agree.
Denise,
You're agreeing to accepting the plan as it sits in front of us, and he'll just give us the updated plan after it's done? Is that what we're talking about?
He'll take off the catwalk and take off the piers underneath and
the pot, okay. So I'm gonna.
Are we allowed
that
to
would be-
approve a project that if we don't have the updated plans is my question.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
So what can happen with it
sorry.
is if it's the commission's vote, then I can just not issue the order of conditions until I get the revised plan. And then once I have it, then I will issue the order of conditions, but I wouldn't
then you
do
can
that
show us
until I
all.
get the revised plan.
Okay, all right,
If
as long
that's
as
the
there's
commission's vote.
as long as there's
Okay.
a process to handle that.
All right.
And
No
as
problem.
part of the process, just to interject a final thought, I would provide you the plan tomorrow.
All right. So if there's anybody online who would like to speak to this project,
Don't I gotta vote here?
oh,
Oh,
sorry.
Hi, Mike.
No, maybe I'll just think about it here. Yeah, go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Move to
Okay.
close the hearing.
I have a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
In a second, all in favor, Elisa,
yes.
Kwame,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Denise,
Yes.
Michael,
Thank you for remembering me. Yes.
Sandy. The hearing is
Right.
closed. So the motion would be to accept the project with the stipulation that the catwalk and additional 8 pylons will be removed prior to the order of conditions being released. I believe that would be the motion.
Well, no, we have to say that about the standard order of conditions, the pilings driven into place, not jettied into place, and the work off a barge with high tide stipulations.
All right, yep. So we
Second.
got four things. Okay, I heard a motion in a second. All in favor, Lisa,
Yes.
Kwame, Carol,
Yes.
Yes.
Mike,
Yep.
Sandy. You got it with the stipulation of those 4 things and updated plans tomorrow. So thank you, Bill.
Thanks very much for your time. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The next hearing is RC Moto Inc. Is there anybody here representing that project?
Good evening, Brad Bertola with JC Engineering.
Thank you, Mr. Bichette.
Okay, let me get this plan pulled up here.
Oh, this is the clip thing.
We had a revised plan, correct?
That's correct.
Carol, that will be contagious. All of us will be yawning.
I planted 96 impatiens today by myself. I'm tired. I'm tired.
How could you actually, how could yawning be contagious and you're like all the way out in another part of the country? That's what I'm just curious about.
I'm rallying the troops to go to hunt now. That's what yawning is. The signal is time to hunt.
Hunt. Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. Mr.
Okay.
Bichette, move us.
Okay, so this project site is at 21 Old Glen Charlie Road, and the project involves the construction of a duplex and a garage. Some of the work is in the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland at the site. The site also had a violation which included some filling and alteration of the 50-foot no activity zone to the wetland, and then also other material within the 100-foot to the wetland. The hearing had been continued because we wanted to get more detail of the restoration work that would have to take place within the 50-foot no activity zone. We do now have a revised plan which shows that. So as you can see in this area, this is the 50-foot no activity zone that's going to be replanted. There is a planting schedule up in the corner of the plan, which describes the type and number of plants that would be placed within that area. In terms of the project itself, again, it proposes a duplex and a separate freestanding garage. They are going to put hay bales and silt fence between where that work is going to take place in the resource area. This is a scaled down version from the original plan, which proposed 2 duplexes. So this now proposes 1 duplex and a separate garage building. We do have a DEP file number for this project. And so at this point, I would recommend the issuance of the order of conditions according to this revised plan, with conditions that the restoration be accomplished according to this revised plan, and that all the other fill material that was in the buffer zone that shouldn't be there also be removed as well. I think that's the main part of it. And then if there's any fines associated with work being done within this area, then that's something that should also be part of the motion.
Okay. Dave, can you move the plan up a little bit more so I can see the location of the dwellings?
Yes.
Are we,
so
okay, this is the
duplex. And
Okay,
then
there's
the
a
3 garages over here.
Okay, so it's one building with 2 duplexes in the one with 2 apartments in the one building. Okay, I got it. Brad, is there anything you would like to add?
No, just for clarification in regards to Dave's comment regarding fill in the remainder of the buffer zone. Will you pertain including like stockpiles of potential debris that might be in that area? Is that what you are?
Yes, exactly.
Talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. That's
Okay.
fine. That was it. That as part of the proposed grading plan, those would be removed.
Okay. Questions, Lisa,
No.
Kwame,
No questions.
Carol,
No questions.
Denise.
The plantings that he's doing moved out. I just want to know if they're native plantings or what. I didn't see what they were.
Yes, they are, and I can show you that again. This table reflects the plants that would be placed, and those are native plants to the area.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Michael,
Thank you again. No questions. Thank you.
Nicole.
No, thank you.
I have none. Is there anybody online that would like to comment on this project? Hearing none?
What about fines now?
Well, once we close the hearing, we can discuss that.
Okay, I was just wondering if we would discuss that now, but go ahead.
Move to close the hearing.
Second,
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, Elisa, Kwame,
yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Denise,
Yes.
Michael, Sandy, the hearing is closed. Now you want to discuss fines.
Fines. Go ahead, Mike. What fines do we, can you apply to this project?
Well, typically in this situation, this was one where work was done that would not have been permitted. So typically that's a $300 fine.
Any work requiring Conservation Commission approval in wetlands or in 30, 50-foot no work zone plus full restoration. So it's a $300 fine to be consistent with our process.
And does he restore it? Is that what the plantings are?
Yes,
That's what the
he has a
plan is.
restoration plan that will be in our order of conditions. Someone want to take a crack at it?
I move that we accept the project with a standard order of conditions, with the stipulation that they replant within the 50-foot no activity zone as listed on the plan, and that there be fill removed from the buffer zone area, and that a $300 fine be applied to the project's part that was done without conservation permission.
Second,
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, Elisa,
yes.
Kwame,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Denise,
Yes.
Michael,
Yep.
Sandy, yes, so done, Brad, you got it. Don't start any work without the paperwork from Mr. Bichette, okay?
Thank you. Have a nice night.
Right.
Right.
The next hearing, I understand, Green has requested a continuance until 6/1.
I move that we have a continuance to 6/1.
They actually requested a continuance to the July 6th meeting.
Oh,
July
okay,
5th.
7/6. I didn't read the letter very well. Okay, it's tough on those cell phones. Okay.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to continue until July 6th. All in favor, Elisa,
Yes.
Kwame,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Denise.
Yes.
Michael,
Sure.
Sandy, yes, we are continued. Has anybody heard anything from Wareham MA? Faring Hill?
That project is still does not have the consultant's report relative to the hydrology study. So that's still in a mode to be continued again. So I would say recommend a continuance to the next meeting.
Okay.
We'll
I need
continue
a
to-
motion.
I move that we
Motion to
continue
continue.
to the.
I have a
Second,
motion and I
whoever-
heard a second. All in favor, Elisa, Kwame,
Yes.
Carol, Denise,
Yeah, when are we
Michael,
mo-
Sandy,
Yeah.
When are we
We're-
continuing it to?
Good
6/1.
6/1,
6/1.
okay.
All right. Enforcement orders, Mr. Shit. Have we
This-
lost McDuff?
Yeah, this is a situation on Station Street that we brought up at the last meeting. And as some of you know, I wasn't really in last week, so I was kind of behind and I did not get a hold of Mr. McDuffie to arrange for him to be at the meeting. So it was kind of my fault. So I'd like to put that off to the next meeting.
Okay. Yay, we only have 2 more things to go, folks. We're almost there. We have an applicant. We received an application from Jessica Clark, who is online right now. I would like to have Jessica introduce yourself and ask any questions you have of us. We like to have our applicants attend at least 2 meetings before we discuss a request for appointment by the selectmen. But Jessica, you're up. Any questions you have of us?
I don't have any questions right now. It's been great observing your meeting this evening. Really
Okay.
interesting.
It is
Oh.
entertaining.
Well, certainly helpful to understand how it works and what the considerations are. So here I am.
Okay. We can ask questions of her if you would like, or we can wait for next meetings to see if she's comes back for a second hit at it.
I'll come back.
Well, tonight was atypical.
I was just gonna ask, I understand you have a background in realty, is that correct?
I do. I am a real estate attorney.
Oh,
So
great. That's-
I have a background in both title and real estate.
Yeah, I think that would be super helpful for what we do. As you can see, we've had some issues come up that your expertise would be helpful in.
You certainly are dealing with a lot of different things here. So they're all really interesting to me. And I'm a member of the garden club as well. So,
Wonderful.
so very active in that area.
So you understand why I was yawning.
I do. It's a lot of planting.
Yes,
Yeah.
and
All
she
day.
abuts wetlands too, so.
I do.
Sandy,
Okay, yes,
on another subject, can you look up the hydrology on that when you're doing that? We continued that Wareham meeting 0 Route 25. Can you look up the hydrology that he was talking about, the 4 feet to hit the water table?
I don't have anything on that. Mr. Bichette, will you look to see if they've exceeded their dug into our water table when you look
Sort of
at?
what he was saying on his movie.
Yeah, David, part of what you're looking for, ownership, removal of the soil, can you see if they exceeded our water table?
I can do the best I can based on what information exists at this point. So whether or not I can definitively provide that answer or not, I am not sure of at this point.
Can't go out with a yardstick and measure?
I got a
Okay,
shovel.
can I ask a question? Jessica, how long have you been in Wareham?
5 years.
5 years.
I bought a house really close to Nicole, actually, and an old farmhouse. And I just met this house and I was like, this has to be, I have to live here.
Great.
So there was,
If you,
Gorgeous
Yeah.
too now with the
thank you.
renovation.
Thank
if you
very much.
drive down Great Neck Road going out to Little Harbor, there's a little stand for cut flowers. That's hers.
That's
We were out that way
I think I
today.
know which house, I think I know which one you're talking about. So let's
Big,
see.
beautiful White House. Yes.
Not have.
Okay.
The White House, okay. The
Yeah.
White House, but we're not talking about Washington. Gotcha. Okay.
No.
But Mike, you are on a roll tonight, aren't you?
Yeah, really.
Okay, I have
Considering
another
everything I'm
topic.
going through, considering everything I'm going through, why not have a good laugh here?
I have
One
another-
more,
Wait, I
one
have
more
another,
topic.
wait, no, I have
one
one
more-
more in addition to that.
How do you know what I
You're
have?
out.
All right, there are some courses that I had asked Dave about being able to take, and I wanted to find out if I could take this Fundamentals 101, which is an overview of conservation commissions. It's a virtual, and then a Fundamentals Unit 102, which is an overview of the Wetlands Protection Act, which is another virtual. One is on June 29th and the other is on June 7th. How would I go about taking those courses?
I can go through the process to get you signed up for those. So those are through MACC you're talking about, right?
Correct, yes, yes.
Just one other quick point. I did get an email from a conservation agent in a neighboring town just today who said they were trying to set up some training for their commission members that would be done by MACC, and they asked if
Good,
we may have some interest in that as well. So
definitely.
I can get back to you with more detail, but I can get you signed up for those other classes as well.
Okay,
I
thank
would
you.
also be very interested in that too, if you could.
Sure.
If you're interested in it, MACC, send Dave a quick note.
What days are
Okay.
those again? You said those
One
are the
is
20
one is on June 7th. That's Fundamentals Unit 101, and it
That
runs
might be tough.
virtually from 6 to 8:30 p.m.
You said June 7th. Yeah, that might be tough. But
It's a
Okay,
Tuesday.
well,
And the other is June 29th, which is a Wednesday, and that again was virtual, and it ran, I can tell you the hours, 6 to 8:30 p.m. again.
If you were to go on the MACC website, will that information be there, Dave?
Yes, it
it's
will.
there. That's where I
So
got it from.
Michael's still there. Take a look at whatever, go on MACC, take a look at their schedule. If there's anything you would like to attend, not just these two,
Yeah,
send a
there's a
note
lot
to
of,
Dave and he will set us up. There is a lot there, so
there's a lot of different
help
classes.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yep. There's one more thing we have to do before we depart. With Ron Bessie winning the election for selectman, he's no longer on conservation. And I would like to have a vice chair, and I did speak to Denise and she'd be willing to take that position on. Any discussion? If not,
I do.
Denise,
I-
you want to comment
Wait a
on
minute,
it?
I have a comment. Finally got my microphone working.
Thanks, Mommy.
Now he has.
So wait a minute, the vice needs to provide food for everybody when we do meet and greet, right? Or does that go with Nicole, the
Once we start
newbies?
meeting again, I mean, I've been doing saltwater taffy in the past.
Oh,
but I
no,
don't-
no candies. We want food.
Oh,
And-
but you didn't have any problem
Yeah.
eating the candy at Christmas though, did
Oh,
you?
that's different.
Okay,
That's congratulations. That's nice.
I need a motion.
Oh,
move
sorry.
to-
Motion to approve
A motion to, is it approve?
To approve
or accept.
Denise
as vice chair.
vice chair of conservation.
Yes.
That's the motion. I have a second. All in favor?
Yes.
Lisa, Kwame.
Yes.
Yes.
Carol.
Yes.
Denise. Mike.
Yes.
Andy. 600. Thank you very much, and I appreciate that. And with that, can somebody?
Reader.
Oh, wait, aren't we looking for somebody to do the clerk position?
I haven't finished discussing what that would entail, because I don't
Okay.
think for clerk, I don't want that person to think that they are totally required to do all of the minutes. So let me think more about, normally a clerk does the minutes. It's not fair for a clerk to do all our minutes. So I need to talk a little bit more. A clerk would be doing nothing more. The clerk would have what? Review the minutes and recommend them for approval. I sign the minutes, so
Right, because we're gonna have a person who's gonna be doing our minutes starting in July.
that's
Correct?
what I'm hoping for,
That's-
yes.
that's
But
the-
until then, we will be doing our own minutes. I did not bring my master sheet with me on vacation, so we can talk about assignments of minutes at the next meeting, and then we can talk about whether or not we need a clerk.
Okay,
Okay.
Okay,
all right. And Nicole, you need to make the changes to the minutes that you had sent to me. and then
Oh,
send
yes,
them-
I'm sorry about that.
and
I
Then
forgot
send them
all
to
about it.
everybody so that we can approve them at the next
No.
meeting.
don't send them, are you, that, with those changes, you're comfortable with the minutes?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So Nicole, do you have the distribution for everybody?
I believe so.
Okay,
Well,
all
we need
right.
to add Jessica, I guess.
No,
No,
Jessica
doesn't-
has not been appointed.
Not
She's
yet.
just, yeah, she's just
What?
an applicant right now.
Sorry, Jessica.
All right, just a visitor for
Well,
now.
you're really trying to rush her in on board, I
Just
see.
trying to just pull her right in.
Yes.
Sucker, right in.
No.
Okay, all right.
All right,
Denise, we're not that desperate yet. I mean,
Yeah, all you have to do is.
no,
is
I'm
make that
sorry that,
change
I'm
that's
sorry
on
that,
there.
Jessica, I don't mean to, this.
That's all right. I have a thick skin.
can someone
long
make
night.
a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Hold on, I have one
please?
question.
Oh, yes.
I'm sorry, Sandy. So when does Nicole get appointed?
Well, we normally, we've always asked that our applicants come to at least, our associates come to at least 4 to 6 minute meetings before we make the recommendation to have them appointed by the selectmen. It's usually 4 to 6 meetings. I mean, it is,
She's
Yeah.
been here
All
for
right.
4 already.
Yeah, she hasn't run
I think-
away yet. That's a good
I
sign.
think she made 3, but that's okay. But so we can, if you'd like, we can talk about it at the next meeting.
That'll
Excellent.
work.
If she's comfortable moving up to a voting position. Okay,
Okay, I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Oh, thank you. What time is it?
Probably too
folks?
much fun. It's 9
8:50.
o'clock here on the East Coast, so,
8:50.
8:50.
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no Celtics. Oh, that's tomorrow.
Okay,
Missing.
Can I get
Okay,
it,
so
everybody?
I have a motion and second it, and everybody wave your hand if you approve. Bye, bye.
Mhm.
Thank you.
All
All right,
you,
thank
Lisa.
you.